My name is Damir. I'm CEO of Big Blue Bubble. I will talk today about specific types of pitches, and this is pitches we're doing for work-for-hire projects. Just short description of what the work-for-hire mean. Usually those are projects that you're not going to pitch directly to the publisher. Actually, the publisher will come to you and ask you to make the game for them. That will usually bring the license to the table, some general ideas and everything. In the last 5 to 6 years since we started Big Blue Bubble, we created over 100 of pitches for similar types of products across the multiple platforms. I think there's more than 10 platforms we develop games for. Out of this 100, about 30 to 40 ended up actually being games, and we move forward, sign the contracts. Contracts also range in the scope from a couple of $1,000s to over $1 million. It really depends on what kind of projects we're working on. So this is one specific area I'm going to talk about. Even though, as you maybe know from our portfolio, we have quite a few games that are on IP that we pitch as Mike described as our own IP, but like I said, right now we're going to focus on work-for-hire projects. So, work-for-hire pitch. Usually is based on request for proposals. This RFP stands for request for proposal. This is something, basically a couple of pages of document you're going to receive from the publisher, where they're going to describe what exactly they want to see in your proposal. And usually they're based on third-party license. Not always, but mostly there's a third-party license that's tied up to the book, movie, some cartoon character or something like that. Sometimes that's going to be first-party license, something that the publisher already owns, but most of these projects, at least when we're talking about the big publishers, are going to be done by their internal studios, so they're not going to look for third-party studio to develop something that's their original properties. Again, most of these projects that include work-for-hire will have predefined scope. They will already know what platforms they want the game to be on, and they will already have some budget in mind that you usually won't know, and that's probably one of the biggest problems in creating this pitch. Goal master date, it's going to be probably set in stone, very, very firm one, because they already know how much money they're going to spend, they know how much money they spend on the license, and they know how much money they're going to spend on development. So they know when the game's supposed to ship in order to get the placement on the EB, Walmart, whatever the game's going to be for sale. So it's you have to absolutely have to make your deadlines to make sure that your goal master is delivered on time. As everything else, this area is really, really competitive. Usually when you're creating your pitch and sending it to the publishers, you're competing against several other studios. Ideally, we'll be having 2 to 3, and that's what mostly happens, at least with our pitches. If these publishers sending their RFPs to more than 5 studios, specifically 8 or more, usually we won't be interested in even doing the pitch for that, because it automatically reduces our chances of potentially winning this project. And as you heard from what I mentioned at the beginning, our success rate is somewhere 20 to 25%. So for every 4 pitches we create, we manage to sign 1 project. Also, there's differences between the studio. The larger studio usually won't send this to so many, larger publishers won't send this to so many studios, just because usually the price of the project is not their main concern, it's really quality of the products they can receive. They have very, very low tolerance for risk, so they don't expect for most of these games going to be huge sellers. Well, they expect obviously it's going to sell very well, otherwise they wouldn't go with this project, but usually their risk tolerance is very low in this project, because they're already invested in a license that's usually in the range of 10, maybe 15% of the budget. Also, usually paying advances to the licensors, and when you calculate this cost of development of the game, they will have to pay the developer or us in this case, sometimes a little bit of royalties, then all the retail cost. You can see that they can't really make that much money, so they really have to be tight here. So here's a list of some of the projects that we successfully pitched in the last 5 years, and we ended up actually getting these contracts and developing these games. This is just a part of, right now we have, I think, out of our 48 games that we have released, about 30-something is our work for hire. The rest of them are based on our own IPs. So I assume we recognize quite a few of these titles there. Maybe our employees that are with us for a longer time, they will recognize some of these games that we did, some of them even back in 2004. But, like I said earlier, for every successful story, there's quite a few unsuccessful ones. So here's just a short list of projects and properties that we created our pitches for different platforms that have never actually saw the light of the day, or they've been, or they selected a different developer to develop the game for this particular properties. Some of them I think never happened, like Hacky Sack. I think that was kind of a weird one. Shakira, I think you will recognize Shakira. I don't think that this game ever happened. Most of the other ones actually did end up being game, yeah, at least in some shape or form. Anyway, like I said, this is really a small part, because like in the last 5 years we created definitely over 100 proposals. And keep in mind, it takes about at least 2 weeks to develop a good proposal, because it does require quite a few elements that I'm going to talk about right now. So, when you receive RFP from the publisher, and just to make clear, receiving RFP from the publisher is not an easy task. If you don't have any industry experience, there's no reason for a publisher to even send you RFP in the first place. They want to work with studio, they already shipped the game, so it's going to be very, very tough to get this first RFP out and get on the RFP list for the publisher. Again, very tough, obviously not impossible, because otherwise no one will ever succeed to get the first RFP. Anyway, when you get it, you should ask several questions, and start with the most important one that you probably won't get the answer. You have to ask them what the budget range is for this particular project, because it's very hard to assess how much time and work and ultimately money you're going to invest in this project, unless you know what's their idea of the budget. Do they want like $100,000 game, they want $500,000 game, so of course you will have different scope based on this. And most of the times they won't answer you these questions. So this is where really experience and knowing the publishers, having personal relationship with producers and multiple companies comes to play, because they will give you these hints. And this is probably toughest and most important part in creating the whole pitch, knowing that you are at least in a range what they have in mind. If you're a little bit over their budget, what they have planned, like I said, what I will tell you, then there is a chance you can kind of negotiate maybe some royalties to reduce the scope of the game and eventually can win this. But if you're way over the budget, things just not going to work. You will spend your time and money and efforts doing the pitch, and they will never even consider you. Also, if you pay lower than their budget is, they won't take your pitch just because it's the cheapest one, because they already have a budget assigned to this particular project. So the fact they're going to spend half of the money won't help them if they won't get the game that they want in the first place. Second question, always to make 100% sure that you understand what their expectation is for Gold Master date, when the game has to be submitted to Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft, or whoever is going to actually print the copies, because that's usually really, really hard to set in stone date. Make sure always when you do pitch, you put some buffer time for it. This is something that most people will never ask. And I always ask this, unless I'm working with the really top tier publishers like Activision, Ubisoft. If you're working with a mid-range or lower publisher, you should always ask this question: do they have secure license?